Hey guys, it's Ross over at the Daily Jaws. Today we'll be taking a look at the scientific accuracy of Jaws by watching some of the key moments from the movie with shark scientist Kristian Pardon. How accurate do you feel Jaws is? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Okay, let's get to it.
You son of a...
Kristian, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us. How you been?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Ross. Really good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to this because this is the first time I ever watched Jaws with a shark scientist. So really sort of keen to see what the conversation looks like. I think before we dive in, though, we must caveat that this is obviously a Jaws fan watching Jaws with a shark scientist, but Jaws is a movie. It is a piece of drama. It's a fiction, but we are looking at certain segments of this just to try and give this a flavour of what the scientific accuracy is like. So obviously when they were writing Jaws, they did quite a lot of scientific research into it. So I'll be interested to see what you've got to say about it, Kristian.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so let's dive in. I guess my first question is, obviously this is sort of nighttime. Is this a sort of common time for sharks to be sort of prowling and on the hunt?
Yeah, definitely. This is the perfect time for a shark to be out looking for prey. They're crepuscular hunters, so they're going to be hunting at twilight, dawn, dusk, and also at nighttime as well. So this is exactly the time of day that you would perhaps expect to see a shark.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that's
as well, like light conditions here, so you can see like the silhouette there. It's a little bit tricky for a shark to accurately tell what you are. So all you are essentially is a silhouette on the surface. And so that's a little bit difficult. You know, the light's quite low. Shark can't really see exactly what you are.
So we were saying this is a case of mistaken identity and then he just got a taste for human flesh. Is that what we're saying?
I think we're saying definite mistaken identity. Interesting here, you can see that the shark is taking a couple of test bites on Chrissy there. So it hits her once, hits her twice. And you know, that's what a shark's going to be doing to test if something's palatable or not. It's test biting essentially to see if that prey item is going to be any good.
And would the test bites come as quickly as that, or would it be a quick bite and then a swim away for a little bit and then come back, or can it be as quick as we've just seen with Chrissy?
It can be as quick as that, or it can be, you know, an initial bump and then the shark will go away and it will bump again. I think people have described when being bitten by a shark before, that first test bite they've described as feeling like someone's kind of punched them in the leg. So they've just been hit. It feels like a punch or they've hit a hard object underwater. And then I think when it comes back for an actual bite, as opposed to just like sort of a mouthing a test bite, then that's when the pain comes and the blood comes.
Okay, because one of the things I spotted as we were talking there, and I hadn't really thought about it, was when Chrissy is just sort of dragged by the shark over to the buoy, and she holds on there for a few seconds, and it's almost as if the shark has let go, and then it comes back and drags her towards the screen, and then obviously pulls her under for the final attack. So I guess sharks are like that as well. Sort of they'll pull away mid-attack, let the prey weaken, I guess, or bleed out a little bit, and then come back and hit it again.
Definitely, the way that, you know, prey species are going to be killed by a shark is through loss of blood. So, you know, that major trauma from those first few initial bites, a shark will, you know, essentially let, for example, a seal just bleed out for a bit, and then it will die and it will come back and rip it to pieces.
This is I've got to say, this is one of my favourite sequences in the movie. This is the Alex Kintner scene, and obviously, spoilers ahead. This is Alex Kintner coming to screen now, and he doesn't last much longer. But I think the thing that fascinates me about this scene is that not just the way that Spielberg sets up all of these different people as potential shark bait, but also the fact that there's a lot of activity in the water. I think at last count, you've got obviously the lady who's just walked in, the large lady who's just walked into the water. You've got Pipette in the water, which is going to be a very different, potentially sort of swing and splash pattern. You've got all of the boys in the water. You've got Alex Kintner about to go back in. And you've got the boyfriend and the girlfriend, which is the other sort of red herring. There's a lot of activity in the water, and it's not too far away from the edge of the beach. I mean, we're only talking maybe 15, 20 feet. I mean, but in the previous attack, we've seen Chrissy, who was a lone swimmer at night. So we've got a complete contrast now. Lots of people daytime, as opposed to a lone swimmer at night. Now, from a shark's perspective, I mean, is there a particular preference, or is this shark he's just being attracted to the noise? I mean, what would be your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, from the kind of first look here, you clearly got so much splashing going on in the water, and we know that from a shark behavior perspective, that splashing is almost mimicking what an injured prey item might be doing. So, injured prey like a seal might be splashing around, and that is going to draw sharks in. There's no question about that. We know that the shark has already attacked Chrissy at night, and she was out as a lone swimmer. But we can see here the shark is again about to attack. But this is, in an area where there's lots of people. So there's no kind of real difference there. It's obviously 2 times a day. I think on balance, you probably wouldn't get a shark coming this close to a beach at this time of day. Perhaps it's not unheard of, but on balance of probability, it's unlikely. But again, we'll see in a second, Alex Kintner is slightly further away from the other group of boys. All that splashing, all that noise that the group of kids are making, and then Alex Kintner he's out on that lilo. He's a little bit further away, and that is a clear example of a shark targeting that isolated person away from that group. So although the group is creating the noise, the shark actually targets the swimmer who's slightly further out than the rest of them, because it's safety in numbers essentially. You're as a group swimming, you're much safer than you are if you're slightly separated from that group. I think we have to point out as well that Alex is on a lilo, and again it's a recipe for disaster here. So you've got the splashing kids, you've got Alex on the lilo, which to a shark is perhaps going to be looking like a seal or a turtle or something, with that sort of large body and a few limbs, either side. That's going to look like a prey item. So we've got, this is definitely, I would say, a case of mistaken identity, 100% for this attack.
Mm. And obviously now Pipette has just gone as well.
It breaks my heart every time, Ross.
I know, Pipette's the one that hits the hardest. But again, there's debate whether he actually lives or not. A lot of people like to say that he lives, but I personally think that he bought the big one.
This is such a brutal. I mean, the blood in this scene, scarring, definitely scarring.
Traumatizing is this scene alone has kept many psychotherapists in business for years. And the thing that I like about it is it's sort of just about what you said there. It's very well thought through. I mean, the way that it's shot, you've got the 6 or 7 kids out in the water between the beach and Alex. So Alex, as you say, is the lone swimmer on the lilo. He's not really able to move. He looks big, chunky, easy meal for a big shark. Obviously Pipette for appetizer, and then Alex the main course. God, that must be terrible being Mrs. Kintner, just your kid not coming back.
Shudders at thought. I know, like my mum, if that was my mum, she'd be in bits, absolute bits. There's the highlight.
Good God. And even that cut there in the lilo is quite reflective of the some of the bite marks you see taken out of surfboards and things like that as well, which is interesting. I just love the way that scene is really observed. It's not just really well told in terms of the reaction from Brody, but the actual science behind it. I think we definitely is pretty accurate.
That shark bite there, the death of Alex is probably, I think, one of the most realistic shark attack scenes that we get for the entire movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, so this is the jetty sequence. So again, at night, so prime time shark hunting sort of o'clock, if you want to call it that. And we've got 2 locals who are going to try and catch the shark using one of their wife's holiday roasts. Now, first things first, the holiday roast scenario. Looking at that roast, that looks like a reasonable bait to me. What do you think?
Half decent.
Yeah, half decent. Okay, cool. And they chain it up to a tire that's going to keep it buoyant, so they can keep an eye on where sort of their bait is floating, and hopefully they'll get a nibble. So, is that a practical way to try and catch a 25-foot great white shark, Kristian?
No, straight up no. So, I mean, what meat are we saying there? That is looked like maybe was it a lamb? Was it lamb?
I have no idea.
Beef? I'm not sure. But sharks have been designed for millions and millions and millions of years to detect fish blood, right? That's the most common kind of lure for a shark, and that's why we use fish when we're chumming the water. We use old bits of fish guts and fish heads and stuff. So if you're wanting to catch a shark, I guess, I mean, I wouldn't recommend catching a shark anyway, guys. If anyone's watching this, this is not what I would recommend doing. But you're going to want to use a fish.
Yeah. Okay. So now the shark is, he's taken the bait and off he goes. Now, I'm going to give my view on this. Now, the mayor of Amity likes to cut corners. He's not a particularly frivolous guy. He's probably lining his pockets with the money from the town. So I'm not expecting a lot of quality workmanship on this particular jetty, which is why it's fallen apart. That's my view. All right, it's like the pothole. It's going to be the last thing that gets fixed. So I think that jetty potentially would fall apart. But then the shark takes some of it out to sea, and probably one of the most terrifying moments in the movie when you see that jetty just turn around. And
so it's that slow turn.
Oh, shit. So this whole sequence with the shark pulling the jetty back and chasing this guy, from a shark scientist point of view, what do you make of that?
I mean, again, we're looking at a very large shark that's going to be able to do this. Like you said, maybe that jetty is a little bit old, it's rotting, it's semi falling apart anyway, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a shark could do some serious damage to that jetty. Again, it's going to have to be a very, very large shark to do this.
Okay, so this is where you can go full Hooper now, Kristian, because obviously this is the first bit of sort of shark science we've sort of seen directly in the movie, where we're going to talk about bite radiuses and all that crap. So let's say you're Hooper in this situation, and a shark has been caught, and you want to try and make sure as quickly as you can that this is the shark that's been causing the problem. What would you do? Would you measure the bite radius, or is there anything else you think you'd probably do?
100% bite radius. That is a tool that is still used by medical practitioners around the world to try and estimate or have a good guess at what kind of shark has done this. You can usually tell just purely now through statistics. Statistically, you're more likely to be bitten by 3 main sharks than any others. But it does change depending on where you are in the world and what season it is and all that kind of stuff. But bite radius is definitely something that you'd be using. But like Hooper wants to do here, he wants to cut the tiger shark open, and that is a really good way of seeing what that shark has eaten fairly recently. Their digestion is particularly slow. That's a definite fact. So it takes them a long time to digest things. So anything that shark has eaten, I don't know the exact period of time it would take for a bit of human flesh to digest in a shark's stomach, but there's a period of time there, and so you would definitely have a good go at seeing what that shark's eaten fairly recently.
So again, pretty accurate. The bite radius measurement, and then the digestive system, and the autopsy. And
And I think it's important to point out here as well, this is a real tiger shark that they've got in the film. This is an actual tiger shark, not some model or whatever. This is a legit tiger shark.
Yeah, I think it had been dead for about 2 days before they brought it onto the dock for the scene, and it was just disgusting, apparently.
I've been around so many dead sharks doing dissections and necropsies and all sorts. The smell of that shark at this point in time, for all the actors there and all the extras, it is going to be awful. I mean, they're quite lucky they're outside and there's a bit of wind blowing, so every now and again they might get a bit of respite. When I did a lot of my dissections, I was in a really, really tiny post-mortem, small room. It's not got much ventilation. Sharks have been, defrosting in there for a good few days. So when I get in there on a Thursday morning or whatever, and I get that wave hits me, it stays for the entire time that I'm cutting those sharks open.
So just basically what you're saying is, if you want to be a shark scientist, have smelling salts or just a strong stomach.
Nose plugs or a strong stomach, yeah.
Good shout. That's
and
part
be
of the shark
prepared
scientist
to continuously smell like dead fish for hours afterwards.
It reminds me of an ex. Anyway, moving on. Right, so let's move on to the next scene. Now, this is a part of Jaws that really fascinates me because there's lots of conflicting information about these theories. First of all, about sort of mostly sort of when shark attacks sort of happen. So, 10 feet of water, 3 feet of water, 10 feet from the beach. That's where most shark attacks happen. And Hooper sort of says, yeah, that's true. And then the other thing is the territoriality. Now, this is the first time I'd ever heard this sort of term used, and I've done a little bit of research into it. And there seems to be quite a lot of conflicting studies on that. So let's go back to the first part, the where the attacks are happening. So we've obviously seen so far in the movie 2 different attacks. Chrissy happening quite far out in the water by the looks of things, and you've got Alex much closer to the beach. Are both reflective, or would you say there's one sort of more accurate than the other in terms of placement?
Yes, both are definitely reflective. So there are tons and tons of videos online of great white sharks attacking prey species in really, really shallow water. So that would be things like seals and stuff. In really, really shallow water. But obviously there are also very, very famous clips of great white sharks out in deeper water who are ambushing their prey, and you get that classic breach. So deep water and shallow water, shark attacks will happen in both of those places. And then in terms of the territoriality stuff, that kind of stems from Victor Coppelson's theory. I think it was in the 1960s, maybe. Like you said, it's a little bit conflicting. So at the time, there were people sort of bouncing back and forth as to what was true and what wasn't true. The theory of rogue sharks and territoriality, rubbish nowadays. That's the general consensus, is that's not a thing. And I think it was literally just a case of, at the time, someone trying to explain spates of shark attacks, which was a really difficult thing to try and explain.
Do you think, because obviously there was one of the events that inspired Jaws was the 1916 attacks in Jersey, which seems to be the same shark. I think they attributed it to a bull shark in the end. Even though we're talking about different species, do you think some sharks maybe come into an area for a while, feed while the feeding is good, and then go? Or do you think they have this constant migration pattern? Because I also read, again, I've got nothing to back this up, but these are definitely things that I've read, where they tracked, I think it was a tiger shark, and they were tracking its migration path, and it passed the same point on the same day 1 year later to the day. So they clearly have a routine, but is that routine likely to be broken up, do you think, if they find a particular place where the feeding is good, or is that complete tosh?
Sharks will follow the food, and at the end of the day, that's why they're moving. They're either moving to feed, or they're either moving to mate. They're very simple in that way, quite easy to understand. But they will have particular routes that they prefer. So that tiger shark that you mentioned there perhaps is using a route to navigate. Often sharks are using features underwater for navigation. So for example, a tiger shark might use the edge of a seagrass meadow, and that seagrass meadow might span over tens of kilometers, and the shark knows that seagrass meadow is there, and it's going to use that meadow to navigate its way back to where it was before. So they're using different things all the time, really.
Okay, so the tiger shark autopsy scene. Now this is interesting to me because obviously different sharks have different diets, or apparently have different diets, but this shark seems to eat anything. We've got a whole buffet of things coming out. So I'm interested to know, is there a bit of creative license here, or is this reflective of potentially what a tiger shark could have eaten upon its travels?
Yeah, so we know that tiger sharks definitely are scavengers, and in real life there have been some strange things found in the stomachs of tiger sharks. Parts of car tires, a dustbin lid in one example. We can see Hooper chucking out a can there. Then we've obviously got the Louisiana number plate. So they do eat a range of different things. They're often dubbed the garbage can of the sea. One thing I would have perhaps expected to see in the stomach of this tiger shark, though, is sea turtles. Sea turtles are a big, big prey species of tiger sharks, and you might expect to see some of the carapaces of sea turtles within the stomach. We've got a couple of fish in there, but I would have thought there'd have been some evidence of sea turtles.
Okay. And just one question that's always kind of bugged me, and I guess this might be the right time to ask it. Assuming that the car number plate was eaten in Louisiana, are tiger sharks found in Louisiana?
Yes.
So this is actually quite accurate.
Yeah.
All right, good. Jaws is scoring pretty well for the science right now, isn't it?
They're doing pretty well. They're doing pretty well.
They're doing pretty well, aren't they? All right. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next scene. Okay, so now we're coming up to what's generally acknowledged to be the scariest moment in Jaws, or at least the scariest jump scare. And this is the Ben Gardner head part. Now, this part's bothered me for years because just being a rational human being, there is no way I would get in the water right now just to go and check something. Because as we know, the shark's a night feeder. It's big. It could swallow you whole, all that kind of stuff. And yet Hooper he's getting flippered up right now. And I'm thinking, are you actually mental? So my question, Kristian, is Hooper mental, or is this something you guys would actually do?
Do you know what? I think I probably would. Me personally, I would get in the water. Just because, that boat that Hooper's in there, it's a large boat, lots of lights, very noisy. That's quite a frightening thing for any marine life nearby. It's a little bit scary considering, the damage that's been done to the boat that Hooper's looking at here, Ben Gardner's boat. It's a little scary, and I would be pretty cautious. I think on balance, it's tough. It's really tough. If I really, really wanted to know what had happened to this boat, I'd get in the water, but I'd probably be going in with someone else.
Yeah, like Superman. Or Aquaman or something. Oh
Aquaman would be very, very helpful.
He would be handy in this moment, wouldn't he? Yeah. Oh, this gets everybody every time, doesn't it?
Honestly, like it's just so scary.
It is.
It's awful. Oh, in the eye as well.
This. Do you know what's really funny though? There's a classic interview with the guy who played Ben Gardner, a guy called Craig Kingsbury. He was a local fisherman on the island, and he always wondered how the shark spat the head back in the boat.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm not quite sure how that's happened. Very selective from the shark. Quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, don't sharks like heads? Do they just like that? That's not really for me.
That's the skull. The skull's a bit too hard for him.
Oh, I can't believe you said yes, you'd go in the water. You're a maniac. Okay, so we're now cutting to 4th of July weekend. So obviously the beaches are rammed, but no one's going in the water because obviously everyone's heard about the sharks. Now in the distance, we can see what looks to be a sort of perimeter of boats on the lookout for the shark. Now, obviously back in 75, our understanding of sharks was pretty limited, and the technology available for us to monitor sharks was probably even more limited. So what do you think of the precautions that Amity have taken?
I mean, they're doing what's available to them at the time. I don't really know if shark nets were used back, in the 70s. I imagine they might have been to a certain extent, but they're using the resources that they've got to them, and it's this knee-jerk reaction of we need to have people out there on boats with guns ready to spot, shoot, and kill this shark if we see it.
Mm. And what would the precautions be like now? Like, say, if we had this problem, I mean, I'm assuming we'd probably just close the beaches, right?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of steps that governments and officials take these days to try and reduce the chances of a shark bite happening again at a beach. One thing that's commonly used today, particularly in Australia, is drones. We saw the helicopter just a second ago there, and these days drones are almost used in the same way. So we're flying drones over, and drones are great tools for spotting things from above. And you can see a shark, and as soon as you see a shark on a drone, that can then be reported to lifeguards. Lifeguards can tell people to get out of the water. That's a really, really kind of non-lethal, non-invasive tool to help minimize negative interactions between sharks and humans. And drone technology is getting even better now in the sense that eventually there'll be drones that are manned by no one, flown by no one, just flown by artificial intelligence. And that will then, they'll be flying around particular patterns, and it will automatically be able to detect, hopefully, shark species and be able to differentiate between things like sharks and dolphins and sharks and seals. And again, that information can be reported back perhaps to a sensor that's on the beach, a big post that's got a light on it. And, if that light's red, it means there's a shark in the water, don't go in. So the technology these days to try and reduce those interactions are really becoming quite impressive.
And it's really interesting you say about the drones, because I guess if they have that ability to record information and feed it back, once you've got these drones flying in the same areas for a few years, you're going to get a pattern of movement and species and times, depths of water, areas of the ocean, things like that, which not just keeps us safe, but also just gives us an insight into what these animals are actually like and what they're really kind of doing in terms of their journeys and life cycles year on year, things like that. So
definitely, it will help us learn how sharks use these inshore waters, next to populated areas. What are they doing there? Are they, hunting a particular prey species? Is this a navigational route for them on their way to another area? Using drone footage in that way is going to be so helpful for us to understand shark behavior.
Yeah, and I guess as a predictive and preventative measure as well, it's like if you know that there's going to be sharks in the area at a certain time of year, you can go, right, we're expecting sharks, so don't even bother opening up the beaches, close them, because we know that there's a likelihood of an encounter potentially.
Definitely, yeah.
So now the paint happy bastards, or the little Buster Browns, or however you want to call them, have turned up with their fake little fin and of course an absolute panic. Now, I guess, how do you even manage a situation like this? I mean, again, I guess the idea is not to find yourself in the situation in the first place, but if you've got mass panic on a beach, I mean, what do? You just get everybody out of the water as quick as you can and hope that, casualties are kept to a minimum, I guess.
I mean, the way that people are exiting the water here is not how you should be exiting the water when a shark might have been spotted. It's all about being calm, collected, really kind of keeping your eyes on potentially where that shark is going, what it's doing, where it's moving to. If you're turning around, running, splashing, again, you're potentially mimicking a prey item. It's tough to say because, some sharks are going to be absolutely terrified of, large splashes and absolute pandemonium like that. But some sharks might not be. So that's not how to exit the water when there's a shark around. It's all about being calm and collected.
Cool. Or just not open the beaches. Good old Vaughan. Now, we're heading towards probably the most intense moment in the movie, which is the estuary scene. Now, this is interesting because the shark enters from a different place. He's not coming in from the main ocean. He's coming in from the main ocean, but he's coming in via sort of a little, almost like a slip road into a ponded or sort of secluded area. Now, do sharks generally tend to try and swim it in an open ocean where they've got more room to maneuver and catch prey, or are they pretty adept hunters when it comes to more, say, secluded areas as well?
I mean, great whites in general are going to be sticking out to the open ocean unless they're in an area where, let's say, there's a seal colony, for example, and they're going to be coming into the shallows investigating that. So generally they're sticking out in the open ocean. I'm not 100% sure whether this great white would be coming into the pond here. I'm not 100% convinced that it would be doing this, but still makes for some pretty awesome footage in a second.
Just a bit with the fin coming towards him is just insane, and then
that bit there as well with just underneath.
And then he just slips underneath, and then
brutal, absolutely brutal.
Oh mate, man.
Great shot there. So a point can be made there about shark teeth, or great white shark teeth. Anyway, they're perfectly designed for soaring and serrating flesh. So that leg we saw, floating down there, as the shark has bitten this chap, the shark's going to be shaking his head from side to side, and those serrated teeth, however many there are in the mouth, a number, are all going to be acting as this soaring motion, and that will literally just take that leg straight off.
So, in terms of the actual attack, then this sequence, we'd say maybe a little bit on the creative side for the shark to be swimming into the pond, but the actual result of the attack and the pretty clean cut leg, that's actually quite accurate because of the serrated teeth.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure whether the shark would be knocking him off the boat. There are loads of clips online of people kayaking very peacefully next to great white sharks, and so I'm not sure the shark could knock the boat. Maybe it's possible, but definitely right in terms of how that shark's taken his leg off.
Okay. Well, this shark is a maniac, isn't it? I mean, this shark is, he's obviously clearly in a bad mood. Someone's pissed him off, clearly, because he's just so aggressive. Okay, so this is where you get to nerd out a little bit, because I mean, I love this scene as well, because when I was Hooper, the only reason I wanted to be Hooper was not just because I got to swim around with sharks, but I got to play with all of that gear. Now, there's a lot there. There's a lot of gear there. I mean, he's probably not going to take all of it, but that seems like a lot of gear to kill a fish, don't you think?
Well, I mean, we as marine biologists go out with maybe not quite the gear that Hooper's got here, but we go out with cases and cases and cases of gear. Satellite tags, bruv operations, all sorts of stuff. So, getting on a boat with a bunch of marine biologists who are going out to do some shark research, half of the boat is taken up by gear.
Oh, right. And what would be sort of in your essential kit? Like, what if you were going to, say if you were the layman like me and you wanted to maybe just go out and sort of do some studying of sharks or just record them or observe them, what would you maybe take? What, say, the 3 things you might take with you?
Good question. I mean, it totally depends on what kind of shark research you're doing. Let's say we're tagging, for example. So obviously, one, you're going to want a tag. What kind of tag that is, there are so many satellite tags, pit tags that are inserted inside the shark. There's acoustic transmitters, all sorts. But we'll go, let's say satellite tag first of all. Then you're going to want to need something to sort of, catch the shark, really. So you might use something like a baited drum line. So that's, a sort of buoy with a series of hooks on it, and those hooks have got bait on it, and that's going to be used to catch the shark initially. I'm going to reel that in, get the shark next to the boat. And then the last thing, I'd probably say a tape measure. We always want to measure the sharks. There's loads of different body measurements that we take of the sharks, from the snout to the tip of the tail, the total length. You've got the pre-caudal length, so that's from the snout to the base of the tail. The fork length, which is where, the in that tail sort of kind of cuts inwards, we're almost acting as like a little fork there. There's loads and loads of measurements that we take. We take girth, we take fin height, all sorts. So yeah, satellite tag, method for catching the shark, so baited drum lines and a tape measure. Those are my 3 must-haves.
And so no air tank. I'm just kidding.
I told you, it depends on the research. If we're going diving, I'm going to need some tanks.
I was talking about blowing it up. That's the only reason I'm taking one.
I love how that's what you go to. I go for the, I'm going to go and dive with the shark. You're going to blow it up.
It's just in case. It's just in case, because you never know. Jaws might be real, and it might be the only way you can die. Although having said that, I don't know if you've seen the Mythbusters thing, but Mythbusters proved that doesn't really work, which is a shame. But hey, it's movie land. As we said at the beginning, it's a movie.
Exactly. Anything can happen in movie land.
Exactly. So this is where Quint has hooked something. Now, we don't know what it is. Quint is pretty confident it's the shark. Hooper thinks it's some kind of game fish or something like that. Based on what we kind of know about the shark so far, in terms of the particular shark in this movie, and the behaviour of this particular sort of potential catch, what are your gut feelings on it? What do you think?
I don't think this is a shark. I think it could be a shark. I don't think this is the shark, purely based on the size of the thing. I really don't think Quint is going to be able to, keep this rod, keep his composure. I think this shark pulls that rod out of his hands in seconds, based on the size of it.
Okay, so this is one of my favourite lines in the movie, coming from Quint in a moment. And I want to know, Kristian, what's your comeback? So you're Hooper right now, and here it comes. Oh, I love that line so much. Robert Shaw's got so much venom when he says it.
It's the little cat tip as well.
It is, isn't it?
I don't know how I respond to that. Probably exactly what Hooper does.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm thinking for like 30 years, I've been thinking, what would be my comeback for this moment? I'll be like, yeah, it's probably just that. It's just give him the finger.
It's such a good like dig from Quint there that it's just like it boils you to the point where you're just like, give him the finger.
Yeah, exactly. And props to Cole Gottlieb. Cole, you're an absolute genius. I think you wrote that line. Absolute brilliance. Just genius. We still have 45 years later. We still haven't got a comeback for it. So bang on.
Even from an actual shark scientist, I don't know how to come back from that.
Yeah. Oh, guys, such a great line. Okay, so here's one of the classic moments in Jaws, probably the classic moment coming up. Obviously, you're going to need a bigger boat. Now, with this part, we assume that the orca has been chumming now for quite a while. We've heard Quint say, get another sort of chum marker out there. We've got 5 good miles on him, that sort of stuff. Just on that part, in terms of the chumming, would you set out a line maybe that long, as sort of say 4 or 5 miles, or depending on where you are, can it be almost instant, or sometimes you not even need to chum?
It can be almost instant. So I remember I was out here in Cornwall, with some blue sharks, and we had a sort of, it's not quite like what they're doing here in the film, just kind of throwing it in the water. We had a sort of container that had some chum in it, and within 10 to 15 minutes we had a shark circling around that. It didn't stay for very long, admittedly, but it can happen really, really quickly, and it's just a case of where the shark is at the time. If it's 500 yards away, you can bet that shark's going to be on that bait pretty quickly, particularly if it's fish chum.
I was going to say, and would the shark come out of the water like that to get it? Do you think, obviously that's quite dramatic. The shark going right out of the water. It's a fantastic shot. Have you ever seen a shark, once you've been chumming, sort of do that, or does it just kind of come up and just nibble at the surface and then take the chum and go?
It's more like nibbles than the almost full breach from the shark there. It's, they'll have a few little tackles at that chum, but not quite as eccentric as that.
But this is Jaws we're talking about, so it's okay. And then obviously now the shark has found the boat, he's found the chum, and now the shark is circling and stalking the boat. Now, would that be normal behaviour, or would it normally take the chum and then just disappear?
Again, depends on the shark. I mean, if you have sharks are, show different character traits. They all have different personalities. Some sharks are much bolder than other sharks, and so some sharks will stick around the boat for a long, long time and get nice up close and personal. Others will have one little look at that bait and then be gone, and you won't see him again. Yeah. I think one of the interesting things here is Hooper says, that's a 20-footer. Quint says 25. A great white shark at 25 feet, if it was accurately measured at 25 feet, would be the largest great white shark to have ever been recorded. Most estimates put great whites at around kind of 18 to 19 feet-ish. There are a couple of sort of unconfirmed estimates that put them a few feet bigger than that, at maybe sort of 21, maybe 22 feet, but those are kind of unconfirmed. And unless you had a big old tape measure and got into the water with the shark, you're never going to know for sure. But 25 feet would be the largest great white ever recorded.
Okay. So we're basically saying that Jaws is the best shark of all time.
Essentially.
Yeah. Great. You got it confirmed. There you go. Shark scientist, Jaws, best shark ever. So now Quint's sort of going ham. He's now got his harpoon, and he's now going to try and stick a barrel on the shark. Now, the whole barrel thing, what do we think about that? Now, obviously it's used as the barrels kind of came into the story because they didn't have a shark and all those things, so it was a bit of a plot device to show the shark that wasn't there. But scientific accuracy?
No. Maybe so. Back in the sort of early days of marine biology and marine research, researchers like Jacques Cousteau had some pretty unorthodox techniques of tagging and biologging, as we call them. So there's an example, I think, from a Jacques Cousteau film. I can't remember which one it is now, but I'm pretty sure they tied a helium balloon to a leatherback sea turtle. And that was a big helium balloon, and that was what they used to see where it was going. Unfortunately, that leatherback could then no longer dive down and eat food, and so it didn't survive very long. But that was the initial way that they would try and tag and follow animals. Right. I haven't seen any kind of incidents where people are using barrels to attach and track the movements of sharks. I'm not sure. I mean,
what do you think a shark would do if you tried to shoot it with a barrel?
I mean, it's going to be freaked out. Definitely, it's going to be so freaked out, and it's going to want to get away from that situation as quickly and deeply as possible. So, when you annoy a shark or frighten a shark, in some cases it's going to dive down and it's going to dive deep to try and get away from you, because sharks generally are pretty scared of us and what we're doing. So particularly with a barrel on it, the shark is going to do exactly what it did there. It's going to go straight down.
So that technically could be directed by Steven Spielberg, the end.
Yeah.
But not this shark, because this shark is serious. He's obviously clearly got an attitude. He doesn't like people messing with him because he comes back. Which is,
he comes back with a vengeance.
Big time. Oh, okay, so the shark is back, and clearly he can hear them all having a wonderful time singing their songs, and he just wants to basically join in the party, right? That's basically what's happening, right?
Yeah, essentially.
Clearly. Now, in all seriousness, this shark is pretty pissed off. I mean, I'd be quite annoyed if I had barrels and things shot at me. So he starts to ram the boat. Now, this is actually really interesting, because that insert shot of the boat being rammed and the hull, that is actually shot on Joe Alves' driveway. And that was Steven Spielberg kicking the wood with Joe Alves running a hose pipe over the front of it, because they needed an insert shot, and that's absolutely true.
Love that. Absolutely love that.
Guerrilla filmmaking. I know. It's like, you've got these multi-million-dollar movies. It's like, can we just knock up a hole on your driveway and I'll just kick it? He's like, yeah, cool, we could do that. Brilliant filmmaking. So anyway, the shark's come back. He's managed to find the boat and he started to ram it. Now, okay, thoughts on that?
I'm not convinced. I mean, there are supposedly stories that great whites will ram into some of these old sort of woodeny type boats, but in this day and age, I can't see it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for a shark to spend so much energy to bash through the hull of a boat when it's not really getting an immediate reward from that. Obviously,
but these are the people that shot you with a barrel.
If we start thinking that sharks, act in vengeance, I think we're in a bit of trouble.
Hey, look, listen, Jaws the Revenge Man. Come on, it happens, right? That was his cousin, so yeah. Okay,
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced here the shark could be doing this. It doesn't make any sense from a sort of predator perspective. There's no reward, and so I can't see why it would be doing this.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So not such a high score. However, he's doing quite well so far. Okay, so the shark is back, and they're trying to sort of attach him to the back of the boat using the stern cleans. First question: have you ever had that happen to you with a rope? Have you ever been caught out by a rope like that, Kristian?
Never, ever. And I think it would be incredibly painful for that to happen. You'd also have to be pretty unlucky for that to happen as well.
Yeah. Well, let's go on a boat sometime. I'm sure.
I don't think I want to go on a boat with you anymore, Ross.
Sure, we can make that happen. Okay, so they've attached the shark to the back of the boat using the stern cleans, and now the shark is going to try and pull the boat back the other way now. Obviously, we've seen, all the way through the movie, massive displays of power from this shark, because it is so big. What do we think about this sequence, just from an accuracy point of view? I mean, obviously, this, again, framing it in movie land, but have we ever sort of seen behaviour sort of anything like this from a shark before?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, whether it would be able to pull this boat, you're talking, if Quint's estimates are accurate, 25 feet, it looks big. It's tough to say. I don't know whether the shark would be able to pull the boat here, and I don't think there have been any examples of sharks pulling boats this big. Maybe smaller, if you're fishing from a little sea kayak or something and you catch something big. I think there was a story recently of a chap who caught a shark while he was out fishing on a sea kayak, and that kind of pulled his kayak a little bit before it sort of came up and started chomping. But I mean, the force that the shark is pulling this boat now is I don't think it would be able to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I guess from my mind, I'm just thinking, well, the engine's knackered. It's basically a floating piece of wood. Could the shark pull it back? I don't know how much a boat would weigh on the water, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's tough to say. You know, we don't know. Sharks are very, very powerful animals. We know this. We know sharks are powerful animals, but it's really difficult to say whether the sharks. I suppose you make a good point. The boat's not got any engine. It's not got any pull back. It's not fighting against the shark. So it's, I guess, like a floating cork, basically. Maybe it could be pulled. I'm not sure.
Okay. Answers on a postcard to that one. 21 that's had that done to them. Or maybe those people are no longer with us because they had that done to them.
That's true. Gone now.
Moving on. Okay, Kristian. So here's your big moment. This is where you can go maximum hooper. So here you go. I mean, my first question is, before you even get the cage out, do you have any better suggestions?
Not go back home. I'd sack this off now. I don't think I'd be getting in the water with this shark, considering what it's done now.
Yeah.
You know the power of the shark. We've just seen it dragging the boat. Do we really think that cage is going to?
This is the thing. This is the one time they should have listened to Brody, and they didn't. He just got he. What happened there is that was Hooper taking out the anger and frustration he had about Quint having to go at him and not having a comeback. So he just decides to scream at Brody, "You got any better suggestions?" And then it's like, actually, no, screw you. I don't. Get in your cage and see what happens. I reckon that's what's happened there.
I mean, when kind of comparing what's happening now to sort of real life shark diving with great whites. I mean, I haven't been cage diving with great whites. It's a life goal of mine to swim in the water outside of a cage with a great white. But walk before you can run. Maybe I should do a cage dive first. But we know that these cages are incredibly strong. And although there are some examples of sharks chomping on the cage, and there's a few examples of sharks ending up in the cage, it's unlikely they'd be able to be completely destroyed in the way that this cage is about to get destroyed.
But then when you look at the shark and the size of it compared to the cage, you know what? I don't think it's beyond this shark to do it, because it's just so powerful, particularly when you put a bit of force and momentum behind that shark. Add that to the fact that he is really pissed off. I think actually, I think he could have done it.
Maybe he's a big shark, definitely. We should also definitely point out that the shark is a male individual. There's an earlier clip somewhere that you can definitely see some claspers underneath the shark. In fact, it might even
just
be
after this coming up. Yeah,
it might be coming up. Yeah, that's right. And you can see that Jaws, Bruce, or whatever you want to call him, is a male individual. So he's a big enough shark to do a bit of damage. Again, he'd be bigger than any other great white ever recorded. So great whites don't really get to this size. Could he do this to the cage? Maybe.
Come on, say yes. Go on, say yes.
Maybe. Again, though, I'm not convinced why he'd be doing this to the cage. That's the question we need to be asking. There's no reason for the shark to be doing this to the cage, because when we're looking at shark behavior, we're saying, right, what's a shark trying to do? A shark's trying to get food. Human is not a prey item for a shark. It doesn't make sense that he attacks the cage. We've got to take it with a little bit of pinch of salt.
But the thing is, he's really clever, because look at this. He swam off one way and comes back behind and then bang, right? So he's smart. He's not just big and a brute. He's actually quite clever. So he's thinking, well, clearly these are the guys that are trying to stop me from doing all my eating in the area where I've been eating. So I need to take these guys out first, and then I can go back to just eat as much as I like. That's my theory. There you go.
You film lovers have got your theories on this.
Yeah, man, we do. You should see the Instagram inbox. I get some fascinating theories.
I've got to be the realist in this. I'm the scientist here. I have to be the voice of reason.
Yeah, I'm trying to push it. I'm trying to push you the other way. Okay, so yeah, so the shark is really sort of going to town on Hooper and the cage. I mean, I guess if a shark of that size and strength was sort of provoked, I guess it would probably have something to say. I mean, again, look at the size of the cage to the shark. I mean,
I
the
mean,
shark is absolutely
you're
huge.
looking megalodon size there, not great white size. You're talking extinct giant megalodon. You know, the
Mm.
largest shark that ever lived. That's what it looks like on that. I know Quinn says 25 feet, but those shots there make it look like a megalodon size.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think the cage there they've used a smaller because this was filmed in the back lot of MGM, so they had a. I don't think the tank that they used in the shark tank in the water tank at the studios was the same size as the cage that was actually used in the movie. But there was a shot where with the shark, I think we're going to see it again in a moment with the shark on top of the cage, and that was a miniature cage that was used in Australia, and they put a jockey in there to scale up the shark. But you can see that actually, in terms of comparison to the shark and the cage, when you look at the mechanical stuff that happened on the backlot in the studio and what stuff that was shot in Australia, scale wise, it's actually not a million miles away. And the shark there, the real life shark,
Yeah.
is ripping that cage to bits.
Yeah,
So I guess
think you know, when it does show you how powerful they can be. You know, one of the strongest parts of a shark is the tail. So you know, your caudal fin there is that's what a shark is using for its propulsion. You know, to move forwards, and that can do some real damage when sharks are writhing around like that.
So maybe when a shark is desperately trying to escape or it's entangled, then the rush of adrenaline can produce that particular force. So potentially, we could actually have a shark there that could do that. So here's the next part. So here's the next big part. So this is just spectacular. I love this bit. So he's taking care of Hooper. Now the shark is boom, right, I'm taking out the whole boat now. Now, talk us through that, Kristian, from a scientific point of view.
Yeah, so we know that great white sharks breach. They definitely breach out of the water. Whether they breach for vengeful reasons, again, I'm not convinced. There have been cases where sharks, you know, perhaps not great white sharks. I know there was a case of a basking shark that breached onto a boat many years ago, and eventually ended up sinking that boat, and the two people on board drowned. So, you know, sharks do breach and do end up in boats, but not for vengeful reasons, like this shark here.
So you keep using this word vengeance. Now, are you telling us that we're actually watching Jaws the Revenge here? Is that actually what we're watching? This is the original version of Jaws the Revenge. Don't tell me that, please. Please don't say that.
The shark has shown a lot of vengeful things to these three here. A lot of vengeful things. So it can only be vengeance.
Shark hard with a vengeance. That's actually what we're watching. Okay, all right, fair enough. I love that shot as well. Just he comes straight through the script.
Yeah, great shot. Hooper as well here, about to lug this scuba tank in the mouth. This scuba, not Hooper, Brody about to lug the scuba tank. I know, shocking for me. That tank is going to be really heavy. So he's absolutely hench to launch that into the shark's mouth.
Yep.
Seriously impressive.
This is the thing that I like about the movie, though, because the more we've been talking about it, it's just effectively, because I think Peter Benchley tried to keep it somewhat realistic, and obviously Spielberg came in with his creative take on certain things and stuff. And he basically said that, I think within the movie, he said, if you caught their attention in terms of the audiences for the first 2 hours, they won't care what I do in the next 10 minutes, or they'll believe what I do in the last 10 minutes. And so this is his ending. Originally, the shark in the book dies of its injuries because it's just, you know, it's been hammered, and it just sort of sinks to the bottom with Quint in tow. Whereas this is obviously a much more spectacular ending. But when you think about the behavior of the shark, and then if you think about just scaling it up in terms of the size and the power and everything else, who's to say that a shark of that size couldn't actually swim, not indefinitely, but swim with an oxygen tank in its mouth? I mean, that's the thing, we just don't know, unless we genetically make one. Potentially.
Again, though, you're looking at there. Sharks don't like things in their mouths that aren't prey items. So, you know, a scuba tank in the mouth for that period of time, can't believe it. Sharks are really good at spitting things out. They're fantastic at it. They spit things out all the time. Yeah, like heads. Ben Gardner's head. Yeah. You know, they will spit things out that aren't palatable or don't taste very nice. So this scuba tank here, I think it's no longer in the shark's mouth by this point.
No.
Love it. Love it. Love that chewing, just gnawing on it.
Look at it. Oh, wow. Maybe he thinks that's like a taco or something. Boom. Oh, what an ending. What an ending. Man.
Classic.
That is so impressive. And like I say, I think it might have been 2003, so a long time ago, Mythbusters did a version of Jaws, or an episode dedicated to Jaws. And they did the whole Mythbusters sort of take on the ending sequence. And they basically rigged up a fake shark with an oxygen tank and they shot it with a rifle. I think it was a pretty close accurate to the M1 Garand that's used in the movie. Mm-hmm. It didn't blow up. I was really upset.
That is quite upsetting.
I was really hoping it was just going to explode, but it just didn't.
I mean, you kind of would think a pressurized scuba tank would blow up after being shot, but I mean, I haven't seen that Mythbusters episode.
It's somewhere out there on YouTube, I think. Okay, so Hooper's alive. Woo! The shark is dead. Quint's dead. But anyway, so that's Jaws. We've gone through it pretty much moment by moment. Scientifically, from an accuracy point of view, what's your summary? If you're going to give it, say, out of 10, and what were the most accurate parts of Jaws, do you think?
I think, Jaws as a whole, they get, a few things right and a few things wrong. I think it's difficult to really blame them because, at that period of time, in the mid 70s, shark science was in its infancy, really. We were only just starting to learn about what sharks do and how they do it and where they go and, what they eat and all these kind of things. So, they were making this film based on some of the assumptions about sharks at the time. So, like I said, I think they get a few things right. It's great to see that they've got some real footage of, a great white in there, and we can see that it's a male individual. That's really cool. Couple of things they probably get wrong. You'd say the rogue shark theory and territoriality. These days that's generally pretty frowned upon by the majority of shark scientists. So, it's a tough call. And I think on average, out of 10 for realism, I'd probably give it a solid 6, which I think for me is a good score.
Okay, cool. So, guys, there you have it. That is Jaws with a shark scientist. So tune in for more videos. Kristian, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. We'll see you again soon on some more Jaws shark sciencey accuracy stuff.
Most definitely.
Right. Yeah,
definitely. I think as well, if anyone wants to come across the Shark Bytes, I do a number of movie commentaries. We have the Meg, Deep Blue Seas coming out pretty soon. So if you want to come and have a look on Shark Bytes, the YouTube channel, I'd love to have you across there.
Yeah, we'll put a link to Shark Bytes in the description below. Check it out, subscribe. It's a fantastic channel. As Kristian says, there's some more movie reviews coming in, loads of shark science stuff there. Okay, so guys, we'll leave it there for now, but thanks so much for tuning. I hope you enjoyed that. Tell us your thoughts. How accurate do you think Jaws is? Tell us in the description below. So, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can learn about Jaws, sharks, movie making and everything in between. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok and Instagram, and be sure to check out our website, thedailyjaws.com. Until next time, we drink to your legs. Farewell and adieu.
Anti-shark cage.
Yeah.
You go in a cage. Cage goes in the water. Sharks.
You've got. I've just recorded you doing that, so that's going to be on the text as well. Honestly, I'm just letting this baby run. So I'm just, whatever happens, as they say.